Sydney is looking at a lockdown. States and territories have closed their borders, and that's why the vaccine rollout is indeed a race. For the first time, we have more transparency on the government's longer-term plan. They are projecting, and these are projections, but this is what the states are being told to expect. Pfizer is the vaccine that will be required for the bulk of the Australian population. Between July and August, 650,000 doses will be available each week. From September, 930,000 doses will be available each week. So by October, a minimum of 1.7 million doses will be available each week. AstraZeneca, our only locally made vaccine, well, that will be phased out. It was originally the great vaccine hope for Australia on the promise of producing 1 million doses a week, but it's now only suitable for those over 60. In July and August, 2.6 million doses will be supplied. That will almost halve to 1.2 million in September, and by October, they will only be available on request. Let's go live now to Andrea Crothers. And Andrea, this is some transparency that we haven't seen in the past from the government. Does this show there's going to be a rush on vaccines towards the end of the year?
Well, Laura, so far just under 6.9 million vaccinations have been administered. This new timeline shows that most Australians will be rolling up their sleeves in the next 2 months. That's because 3.3 million doses will be supplied weekly to states and territories. It will then continue to be quite steady from 2.9 down to 2.6 for the following months after that. And as AstraZeneca comes off, well, Pfizer will come in. Moderna also expected to come in by September. The Prime Minister today staring down criticism that Australia has been too reliant on AstraZeneca and also brushing off concerns that perhaps this could hurt him at the next federal election. Scott Morrison did concede that there had been some supply issues and also a timeline stuff-up really when it comes to AstraZeneca, but said that the rollout will be ramping up.
The challenges around the targe advice on AstraZeneca has had an impact over the last few months. But even that said, Nat, 140,000 people yesterday had a dose of the vaccination, and that was a record day. So it continues to escalate and it continues to improve, and the supply continues to rise.
Andrea, the Prime Minister, from isolation, it should be pointed out, has also praised New South Wales for avoiding lockdown so far.
Unlike this time last year when we saw the federal government really slamming states for locking up and locking out, the federal government has been quite reticent to really cast judgment on state decisions this time around. But this morning, all of that changed. Scott Morrison really praising New South Wales and Gladys Berejiklian for not sending the state into a shutdown just yet.
Very confident in the ability of the New South Wales government, which they've demonstrated time and again in dealing with these situations. I think the restrictions that they've put in place are understandable and common sense, and I commend Premier Berejiklian for resisting going into a full lockdown.
As we know, though, it's an evolving situation in New South Wales, and one which could certainly change how Scott Morrison has his stance on that. Laura.